the river's edge, and no sooner was set, and the moonlight, and there's no moonlight. It was quiet. It was dark. The Germans opened up with tracer bullets coming across the water.
You're on the water, or this is before the water?
Right on the water. I would put the boats down, and they just like we set it down, like we set off a trap. They started the fire, hitting the boats, people screaming. But I could see that some of the traces were high, that it would give us the space between the traces and the bullets and the water and the boats. And I'm yelling, everybody in the boat, everybody in the boat. And I'm yelling to these guys. I don't know these guys, but I had two other combat engineers in the boat. And we launched the boat. I got them in the boat, and we launched with paddles, two in front, and they were supposed to paddle. Now, if you've seen the book, there's a book by Rick Atkinson. On the front of that book, or the cover, has a picture of GIs who were cowering from fire when on the assault boat. I wrote to the institute down in New Orleans, the veterans, what do you call it, down in New Orleans.
World War II Museum in New Orleans?
They sent me a copy of that picture. I think it might have been my boat, because they're all ducking, no one's rowing, and the Rhine is going 9 miles an hour. And they're all dug in. You get the feeling you're on the beach where they're firing ducks on the thing, and people are screaming, and they're rowing. They finally let them out, and I felt badly for them. So these guys had to go up in the hills and dig these Germans out, and you could hear the screaming. I could hear one German yelling 9, 9, 9, and I could hear one guy yelling, "Cut out, you son of a bitch!" And he let go with his automatic. And I said, "You guys have to go up there." He said, "You poor guys have to go back across the water." I did it with 3 men. When I got back, I had obligated to go back to the point where I was embarked from. They said, "You have to go back again."
So with a 9-mile current, that's been quite a ways.
I'm exhausted. I don't say anything. I'm a good soldier, in spite of what my brother told me what to do. I go across, and boats are going down, drowning. I get back, and I pull the boat back again, and I climb up on that camp on the side of the river, and fall fast asleep. It was like 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning.
So it's basically getting sunlight.
Like, someone kicks me. It's my company commander. We need another person. I just went across twice. Everyone had took off. They got hidden very quickly. You have to go. I said, "I just went across." He said, "I don't care how many times you went across. You're going again." So another boat and myself went across that river the 3rd time. That boat was machine gunned down beside me. I made it. I got a Bronze Star for that, and a Bronze Star for the tank.
Unbelievable stories. And well-deserved on both accounts. Wow. So the crossing the Rhine, there's still a few more months before armistice. So where'd you go after the Rhine? How far into Germany did you go?
I went down into the Czechoslovakian border.
Okay.
Zwickau, Zwickau, I think it's Zwickau, something like that. And we met the Russians. I didn't meet the Russian forces as much, but we read a Russian prisoner of war camp. It was a camp with a lot of Russian soldiers. There were some other Yugoslavians and so forth. And our job was to keep order and to see to get fed. So the big Corporal Bornstein takes a truck. I don't know where to go. I go to the nearest place where they make bread, and they tell the guy to fill up the bread, to fill up the truck with loaves of bread. No cover, just blow like coal. Yeah. And he says, "Here's a sign here." I said, "Okay, Joe Blow." But they took this. We took this food back And we just distributed. You couldn't give it to individual. We asked the people to send out a representative. Meantime, in the interim, I got to talk to one soldier who was my age, about 18, 19 years old. He showed me, I couldn't speak in Russian, he couldn't speak English. He showed me pictures of his girlfriend, and we got to know each other. It was such a camaraderie, and I liked him. That's part of the story, because when we fed these soldiers, the delegates, to take the food across, to give the food to their people, they took it to the back fence and traded it with the Germans for schnapps and watches. We grabbed them. I fired my rifle at them and took them back along with two other guys they sent over a commanding officer from the Russian army. He was dressed up with red epaulets, handsome. His boots were shiny. He was a real officer. Anyway, he spoke German, and he asked them, and all of a sudden he takes his fist and he hits one of them in the face, and the guy bows and hits him again, and then he dismisses them. So he said to the guy who was in my unit, who spoke German, to ask him in German, he spoke German, why are you letting them go? Why are you letting them go? They did something wrong. In my outfit would be court-martial. It makes no difference. All these people, there must have been 1,000, are going to be shot. What do you mean? Ask them again. Because what they do is they take it before a doctor. You were a prisoner. Where were you wounded? I'm not wounded. Then how come you were taken prisoner? And he said, all these men would be shot as traitors. I kept thinking of this young man. Now this is Rickow. The last envelope I had was my brother visiting me. The war's end. And we went traveling around. He had a Jeep, and that's why the war ended. And then I came home in December. We came home. We went to Le Havre, France. I thought we'd get a boat. We stayed there for 2 or 3 months. We came home on December 15th, 1945.
So basically you were part of the occupation force for several months. The war was over in May, and you came home in December. So you were there for about 5-6 months.
Now, what did I do when I came home?
There you go.
That's probably your next question.
Absolutely.
I hadn't been to college, but I remember my brother telling me that he was going to take care of me. I was not a good student. I was a fair student. But I hadn't had any preliminary, so he sent me to a camp, a preparatory school up in New Hampshire near Dartmouth. And I spent a couple months up there getting refresher courses. And then he said I had to find a place to go to college. He said, I have just a place, all the colleges were filled. So he says, I have a man, a fellow officer who was in my unit, who was an ophthalmologist from Missoula, Montana. Mm-hmm. He said, if you send your brother to me, I'll see that he gets into school, use my address. I couldn't get in, I couldn't get back in Boston, they were all filled, and I wasn't a good student anyway, my record was not so great. So I went to Missoula, Montana. I spent a year with the idea of transferring back. Meantime, I had met my wife-to-be, Marilyn, and she went to school in New Hampshire. We said we were going to transfer to Boston University. So I ended up to Boston University, but this is what's interesting. Remember, because we were veterans, we would move the time, we would do it in 3 years instead of 4 years. Accelerated, I think.
Accelerated, sure.
So she and I got admitted.
You're a civilian now, right?
I had good grades.
You were discharged from the Army. You're a civilian now.
I had good grades in Montana.
Okay.
And she's an exceptional student. And we were going through the line, and I forget it to this day, and we were engaged. And there was a man behind the chair, behind the table, in uniform. He joined the ROTC. Now, if I could swear in this interview, I would. I told her where to go.
Okay.
He said, what do you mean? He says, it pays $28 a month. $28 for what? He said, all you have to do is wear a uniform one class. Are you sure? Just $28, a lot of money to me. And my wife whispered to me, with that kind of money, we can get married. She's laughing.
So she was kind of in favor of getting this $28 a month.
$28 a month. But I was getting $105 from the GI, $28. So I joined ROTC. I joined ROTC, and I was a good student. I kept my nose clean. I was probably with a few veterans around. And I didn't know that, but I trained. My major at school was, I was not a graduate, I was a phys ed major.
This is back in Boston? This is Boston
University.
What school? Boston
University?
University?
Boston University, phys ed.
Okay.
And I was doing very good grades.
Good.
And apparently I made very good grades in ROTC. Not that I was a scab and blade.
Good.
I was a good, they enjoyed me there. But anyway, I get a letter from the government saying I'm a distinguished military student, and upon graduation, I will be tendered a regular Army commission. So you want it? I said no. I came home, it was on a Friday, and my brother was stationed at the Pentagon, the same brother from Europe. He said, you did what? I said, no, I don't want it. I don't want the Army anymore. He said, you know, it pays $10 a day. Just think, for every day you work, you know whether you work or not, it's $10 a day. And it's 1949, there's not going to be any more wars. You take it for 4 or 5, regular Army commission, they can't throw you out, regular Army. So my wife and I paced the floor, and she said it's not such a bad idea. We both agreed. So the next day was on a Friday. I went back to the dean's office, found my letter, tore it up. The next thing I know, it was up at Governor's Island in Boston, swearing in as a second lieutenant. But let me tell you where my assignment was.
Okay.
Now I'm a regular. I told him I didn't want to be in the infantry. I knew better. I wanted to have a bed and food. So I want to go in I want to be a medical service corps. So they gave it to me, everything I wanted. And I get assigned as a medical. And what of my phys ed? They sent me down there as a coach. A coach for the. Did
your brother have any influence on how this went?
No, he didn't. But he saw that he watched over me. He would come visit me all the time. He was at the Pentagon. I don't know if he may have. He was an unbelievable brother. So I coached. I had a pretty good basketball team. I played baseball. And I'm in a car with him, and his wife is pregnant. And my wife is pregnant, who was June 1950. And he turns on the radio. And he changed that Truman had just announced police action for Korea. Like Vietnam.
June 25th, 1950.
June 50. I said, oh, that's not going to affect me. I've already been in combat. I'm not going to do it anymore. He's been, 1 week later, he's on his way to Korea. Didn't touch me. I go up to Boston. A couple months. I go to a wedding, come back. There's a telegram. Marilyn's pregnant, 9 months pregnant. With Aura, or named to be named Aura. I come home, I could never forget this. She's they didn't have air conditioning, but she had the window open, peeling onions, and she's crying. She soon had a lot to be crying about because I said to her I had to leave on Monday. She said, you can't leave on Monday, I'm going to have a baby in a day or two. I said, well, you can't. They're not going to make exceptions. Everybody has to go. I called. She called her parents. They came down. And I get away. I flew to California. She flew to Boston, and I got on a boat, headed for Japan, with a bunch of recruits, with a lot of replacements. I didn't have a unit. I get to Japan to a repo depot, and I'm menzoing around. A couple of days later, they hear my name being announced over the radio. Lieutenant Bornstein come to the command post. I came home, and it's this major, well, where are you calling from, Korea? He said, no, I'm calling from Japan. What are you doing in Japan? You went to Korea? He said, I did, but I got wounded. Wow. I said, how'd you get wounded? He said, well,
So the first thing he got to Korea, he got wounded.
I said, how'd you get wounded? He said, well, he said, I know the difference between incoming and outgoing shells. There's a whine, as you know. And I thought was one coming in, it was really going out. And I jumped out of the Jeep, and I broke my elbow. I said, you got $1 million wound, you're going home. He said, no, they want me to open up a hospital. And I'm looking over the list of administrative officers, and I see your name. Would you like to run a hospital with me? I said, I don't know a hospital.